Welcome to Doing It with the Big Guy, channel that covers all the tips, tricks, and things I wish I would have known prior to traveling alone to a foreign country. Initially, I was looking at going to Kiev, Ukraine, but they got a spike in COVID cases and closed international travel. So my next destination became Colombia. So I visited two major cities while I was there. One was Cartagena and the other is Medellin. So this video is going to focus on the process of entering the country, what you need to know, and then we'll focus a little bit on Cartagena. In another video, I'll focus a little bit more on Medellin. So in order to enter Colombia before going, you're going to need to know two things. One is that you're going to need to get a PCR COVID test, not the rapid test, the PCR COVID test, 96 hours before your flight takes off. Now, majority of places are now getting the results back to you 24 or 48 hours. So this does give you some time before travel to get your results. I recommend printing it out if you're at home and also carrying it as an email. Sometimes when you get to the airport, your Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi, your service is not good. And also when you're coming back, I ended up taking a screenshot of the results, and that proved very helpful with the lack of Wi-Fi and internet service when I got to the airport. You're also, in mentioning that, you're also going to need the same process coming back. You're going to need a PCR test to re-enter America, the PCR results. Now, when I was in Colombia, I was able to find a place to give me the results within 24 hours. Once I was in Medellin, they sent me an official letter via email, and there was no issues. The second thing that you need to know before you leave is that you need to fill out a check MIG. They're going to ask you for it when you arrive. You don't want to be pulled over to the side. Again, fighting with internet service on your phone, fighting with no Wi-Fi at the airport. Make sure you fill out your check MIG before you enter the country and have those documents ready when you arrive. You're also going to need those through the same process when you're returning back into the country. They're going to make sure that you have those things, so fill them out when you're leaving from your home and fill them out when you're leaving from Colombia back to your home. These are just two things that I know I had to research, and gladly I did, because I saw people being pulled over to the side trying to fight with their phone to try to get these documents to show immigration once they arrived. Have it, take a screenshot. This is going to prove very helpful to you when you have already landed and you're trying to enter the country. Another recommendation that I'm going to make for you is that if you do not know Spanish at all, I'm going to recommend that you learn a little bit. Learn some basics, especially left, right, and straight. When you get to Colombia, especially Cartagena, you're not going to see the street signs. And if you need directions from somebody who's a local and they don't speak English, they're going to tell you, go 2 blocks, make a left at the corner, go 1 block, make a right at that corner, and then your destination is there. So left, right, and straight are 3 very important words in order for you to get around if ever lost in Cartagena. Another thing is definitely download some type of translator. I used Google Translate when I was there. I overused Google Translate when I was there. It definitely helps me to get by, whether I'm in a shop, whether I'm trying to order breakfast, whether I'm lost and need some directions, or I'm trying to communicate with somebody that's local, one of the girls, whoever. Google Translate definitely is one of those things that I highly recommend that you download. It'll be a lifesaver when trying to communicate with locals. If you're fluent in Spanish, then you're good to go. If you're like me, who's mediocre in Spanish, I definitely utilize my Google Translate as well as my little bit of Spanish skills that I had already going on. So that's tip number 2. Definitely learn a little bit of Spanish. Google Translate, do not rely on the traffic signs. Like from New York, and you can get yourself around. Every street is numbered. It has some kind of sense to it. When you're in Cartagena, inside the walled city, the street signs have no sense to them. So it's going to be 2 blocks, left, right, at the corner, and then halfway through the block, your destination is there. So that's just tip number 2 on things to know before entering the walled city of Cartagena. So I want to talk a little bit about where I decided to stay when I was in Cartagena. So I decided I wanted to stay within the walled city. That was my preference and choice. And I knew that I wanted to stay near the clock tower because I knew that that was a centralized location, a good place to start. So I ended up staying at an Airbnb. The Airbnb's name that I stayed at is Soy Local. It was half a block away, literally, from where the clock tower was. So I kind of lucked out as far as, that was concerned. I ended up being where I wanted to be. Everything, every tour, getting a cab, everything became really simple because it was right there for me. One thing I do want to discuss, though, if you are a person that's looking to hook up when you're on vacation, you definitely want to get some information about the place that you're staying. So from my research, there are places that do not allow you to have overnight guests or guests in general. When I was looking at my Airbnb, it said no parties, which I was fine with, but I had to reach out to the person running my Airbnb, and I reached out to them several times to make sure that I could bring a guest back either for the day or for the night if that's what I chose to do. So I definitely recommend emailing or messaging the person that's running the Airbnb. Now, there are security measures in place, to protect you as a visitor to the country. So if you're bringing somebody back to your apartment or your Airbnb, they are going to ask them for a current ID, and they're going to take that at the front desk. It is to protect you as a person. They don't want you as a visitor to their country having stuff stolen, making sure that, you're not knocked out of stairs and the person ran off with your passport, those kind of things. So definitely check. There are places, hotels, there are Airbnbs that do not allow overnight guests, do not allow visitors to your place. I've heard about some places that they want the person's name a day in advance. Now, if you're most people like going to the club and picking up a stranger and bringing them back with you, there's no way you're going to know that person's name the day before. So just check with wherever you're planning to stay to make sure that they allow guests in your place. I checked and I double checked and I triple checked because I did not want any surprises when I was there. So Soy Local was a good place for me. The people there were very friendly, were very nice, and there were no issues with me bringing guests back as long as they had their form of ID with them, proper ID and the current ID. There were zero issues with allowing people to come back. But definitely that's one thing you want to check prior to leaving, is that you want to make sure that if you're interested in bringing guests back, that you are allowed to bring guests back.